today's guest, work isn't really work at all. It's fun, it's flexible, it's a pleasure. And when you hear her talk about what she does, you'll understand why owning a business doesn't feel like a grind for her. It feels like freedom and gives her the confidence to keep doing more. In this episode, I sit down with Kerry, also known as Miss World Traveler, who has explored over 130 countries and built a life that blends two seemingly distant worlds: fashion and travel. At first glance, they don't look connected, but as you'll hear, they're both vehicles for teaching confidence, presence, and how to move from backstage to fully stepping on stage in your life. We talk about travel not as escapism, but as a tool for self discovery, about pageantry as a way to face one of our greatest fears, publicly presenting ourselves, and how meeting people where they are is the key to growth. This conversation is about structure and flexibility, planning and courage, and why waiting for someday is the fastest way to stay stuck. Let's roll right in. All right, welcome to the Work Sucks, But I Like It podcast. Today we've got Kerry Damiano. She's known as Miss World Traveler, has visited over 130 countries around the world, has attempted many businesses, and is now financially free. She also was a pageant coach, or is still a pageant coach, earning numerous awards in her 40 plus years of experience, and loves to design her own clothes and jewelry. Kerry, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm excited to be here.
No, love it. So, Kerry, can you define work? You've got a lot of different things I just kind of explained there. How do you define your work today?
That it's not work. I love what I do so much. It's something I'm so passionate about that it's not really work. In fact, I just got back from Africa for 2 weeks in Africa, and people say, "Were you there for work or pleasure?" I'm like, both. My work is so much fun that it's a pleasure.
So, Kerry, how I think everybody wants kind of your enthusiasms to showing up every day. How did you transition from, I guess, work sort of sucking to now something that you really love to do?
Well, Anthony, work never really sucked for me. I mean, I always enjoyed what I did. Now, I did the whole, punching a clock isn't really the right word, but you get the idea of the must go, be there at a certain time, you know, the whole thing. And I haven't done that for 25 years. I've had my own business. So I love the flexibility of that. So that was a little bit of a difficult transition, just going from the regular paycheck to the not knowing where the next meal was coming from. But once I got over that, then it was just turning everything I loved into work. And then I haven't worked a day in my life.
That's awesome. So, Kerry, why travel? Why has travel been such a important thing for you all these years?
Well, my mom got me started traveling. She took me on my first international trip as a college graduation present. And this is back in 1984. So I've been doing it a long time. I got hooked. It was one of those, 17 countries or 10 countries in 17 days kind of a thing, and I'm just like, I got to do this again. So we traveled together for about 10 years. And then I got pretty darn comfortable and I wanted to do it on my own. And so for the last 30 some years, I've been, a proponent of women traveling by themselves because it's confidence builder.
Mm.
It's you learn to really take care of yourself, think for yourself, figure it out for yourself, and that is part of the addiction.
So I gotta ask, when you travel, I guess when you travel, do you go for, I guess, describe when you travel. Like, what do you do when you're traveling? What's your kind of intention for traveling to these new places?
Well, it depends on what I'm doing. For Ms. World Traveler, I'm truly, it is work. After I just said it wasn't work. But I'm very focused on what I'm trying to accomplish. And so I'm looking for interesting content, which will be shops, fashion, style, architecture, history, culture, some of those things that are really of interest to women, men as well. But really, our target is women. The idea being to inspire women to travel, even if they have to do it alone, and then shop local. So we're really trying to do something different than what everyone else is doing. I don't ever tell you where to eat, don't tell you where to stay, don't tell you, like off the beaten track, bungee jumping types of things. It's all about fashion and style. And so I'm looking for that specifically when I go on these trips.
Hmm. How did you get into sort of the fashion sort of like industry? Walk us through how you got into that.
Well, after college, I wasn't ready to, become a productive member of society. So I went back to school and I went to London and the American College of Fashion, which is now defunct, but at the time it was a very nice school. And I did my graduate study there. And really, that's when I got my foot into it. I'd been interested before, but this was sort of you know, getting the technical, part of it down, and then when I came back, I was from a small town in Idaho, I moved to Phoenix, and a little bit more opportunity for fashion here, started traveling, and then even more opportunity for fashion from that.
No, love that, Kerry. So I come from a, material science engineering background in the aerospace industry. So when you say the word technical, I don't mean to insult your industry. I'm sure there's a lot of moving parts to this. Can you walk us through what you mean by technical in the fashion industry? I love this. I love this.
Yeah, well, that I actually knew what I was talking about because, I mean, you can say you love fashion, but still have no idea what you're talking about. So understanding about textiles and about how things are made and the business of design, those sorts of things. I did have my own fashion line for a while. It was completely unsuccessful. I didn't sell anything, but I learned from it. But point is that when I say technical, that's sort of the business side of things. So
No, I
I
love
hope
that.
that wasn't insulting to you who's really a
No, no,
tech
no. I
guy.
just generally interested in, yeah. No, I love that. So, Carrie, there's when I was researching, your background for this particular episode, there's a book that I love. It's called The Courage to Teach by Parker Palmer, and he has this line, and I want to read it to you and see what you think. What gives value to travel is fear. What comes to mind when I read that?
Absolutely. I talk about this a lot that we as women especially have fears. We don't even know that we have. But when I ask you, why don't you travel more? Well, what if I'm lonely? Or, what if I can't afford it? Or what if I get there and I don't know anybody and I don't know what to do? We have these fears that are just sort of in there and they're simmering. And again, sometimes you haven't even put your finger on what it is that is stopping you from doing things. And this is just a microcosm of life, right? We all have these things. Maybe it's going out, on your own business, quitting your job and starting your own business. What if I can't afford it? What if I'm a failure? What if, people reject me? We have these fears. So certainly from a travel perspective, it's a way to, once you've done it, you've conquered your fears. And the more you do it, the more confident you become. And those just kind of go by the wayside.
I feel like there's a lot of parallels with your coaching, right? With the again in the pageant coaching, right? With fear. Can you kind of bridge the two here for us? How you coach people in the pageant industry and then coaching people to, I guess, overcome their fear with traveling?
Right. It's like you say, it's very much the same thing because it's really about life. It's a vehicle. Travel is a vehicle to teach those things. Pageantry is a vehicle to teach those things. And both of them, the result is confidence. That's really what we're all after, isn't it? The confidence to go boldly, to do things we never thought we were going to do, to step outside our comfort zone, to not be afraid of the unknown.
So one of the things I've heard with travel, and I want to get your thoughts on this. So the word escapism, right? I've heard that used in the context of, I'm going to go on vacation, but then it gets labeled as, well, you're just escaping from everything. What are your thoughts on that? Are people escaping when they travel?
Hmm. I've never really thought of that. I suppose it depends on your perspective. For me, because I'm so busy when I travel, I am not relaxing on a beach. So I'm not having that kind of escapism because your mind is so focused on what you're doing and trying to figure it out. You're in a new place and it's not familiar. So you're trying, what can I eat here? And, you're figuring out your routine. Figuring out all of those things, it engages you mentally, intellectually. And so it is an escape from your everyday, from your routine, from what you do know to go to the unknown. So I suppose in that from that perspective, it is escapism.
So this is the Work Sucks, but I Like It podcast. What sucks with traveling in your experience? Have you had a travel experience that just sucked? And what did you do to not make it suck?
Well, two very different questions.
Sure.
Um, so I just got back from Africa, 2 weeks in Africa, and the jet lag, that sucks. Uh, the water wasn't great to drink, and I had some stomach trouble. I suffered a bit from that, so that sucked. But I'll tell you probably a really big one was last year around this time. I typically travel over Thanksgiving because my birthday is close by, and so it's just sort of a birthday present to myself. But last year I was going to Cambodia, Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, and I flew through Seoul to get there. And it just so happened that it was a snowstorm in Seoul. And so the plane couldn't land and they circled and circled. And then they sent us to another airport because we had to refuel. And then we had to be de iced. And we ended up having to be on the airplane for another 7 hours. And then I couldn't get out to my next flight, and there were no hotels and there were no taxis. So I spent the night on the airport floor. So this is one of those that you wonder, why do I do this? Why do I think this is fun? Because it certainly wasn't on that particular day.
So I guess okay. So when something sucks with travel, let's build. I know there was two parts to that question, or two questions with that. So when something sucks with traveling, what have you learned over the years to not make traveling suck? I mean, obviously you've got unforeseen circumstances where you got to sleep on the floor because of a snowstorm, but what have you done over the years?
I think it just becomes from experience. It comes from experience that you don't one get mad. Keep a cool head. These things happen, and yelling at the person, who trying to help you, the agent at the gate or whatever, it's not their fault. They ca Getting mad does not help, and being irritable with all the people around you. We're all waiting. We're all tired. We're all hungry. We don't all None of us want to wait in line. So keeping that cool head, I think that just comes from experience, that it cannot be helped. And so that's the main thing. The second thing is I'm kind of a strategic thinker. And
Mm.
so I run scenarios in my head. All right, well, can I drive? If I can't get out for 2 days, what can I do in the meantime? Do I want to stay here? You know, I I run scenarios in my head of what are my possible options because I need to be prepared to do that. Nobody else is going to do it for me. When you finally get up for your turn, and the gal says, "Oh, you can't get out for 3 days." I need to have answers. I need to
Mm.
already know. Is there a rental car available? Is there a hotel available? Those sorts of things.
So when you're, planning your travel trips, do you have this like crazy detailed itinerary? You're just kind of spontaneous. Like walk us through how you plan to travel to these places.
I'm not spontaneous at all.
Okay.
Everything is planned, and I do that. I typically leave time for flexibility, but everything is planned. So, for example, this trip I just got back from Africa, I flew into Cape Town, and then I went to Namibia, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Botswana, Mozambique, Swaziland, down to Johannesburg, and then Lesotho. So it was very well planned, and I had private guides meeting me in all of those places, hotels already booked. Once I got with the guide, then we could, "Well, do you wanna do this? And this is an opportunity which you can do." There was flexibility within the
Mm.
plan, but the structure was already there. Uh, there are some people who say, I'll just figure it out when I get there." That's not me. I don't wanna be in Zambia and not know where I'm staying and what I'm doing and where I'm going.
So as Miss World Traveler, I guess what is your message for why you're traveling? Like what are you trying to explore, I guess, as Miss World Traveler?
It's kind of, as I mentioned, our mission is to inspire women to travel and then shop local, but it's more of it's never too late. No matter where you are in your life, or no matter what phase of life you're in, and maybe you're, you know, a young person and you have to travel differently. And if you're a little further along in your career and maybe have a little more affordability to be able to do that, or maybe have time, maybe time is your issue. Whatever it is, it's never too late to do it and to just do it, borrowing
Mm.
from Nike, just do it. So when I turned 50, and this was a number of years ago, I said I was going to quit saying someday.
Mm.
Someday I'm going to do this, and someday I'm going to do that. Every time I thought that in my head, someday, no, I'm going to do it now. So it's never too late to get started, whatever that thing is for you.
So, how did you overcome that procrastination of saying someday? I feel like that's a common disease today, right? I'm going to wait someday till I retire to do this. I'm going to wait someday to work on this project or go up and hike a mountain. How did you overcome
Exactly.
that? Saying someday to doing
Well,
it
kind of.
today.
I just stopped myself in my tracks. It just no. Instead of saying someday, just go do it. And frankly, that's the sort of attitude I have about life. That if I want to do something, okay, now what does it take to do it? Is it time? Is it money? Is it, you know, safety? Whatever the issues are, okay, let's address those and see what I can do to make it work, but do it.
Gotcha. Do you help others plan their travel? Is that a kind of a service you
No,
don't?
no, it's not a
Interesting.
thing. No,
Why
it's
is
just
that?
Um, I'm not a travel agent. That's not my love of doing that. I enjoy making my own travel arrangements, but it's not something I want to do. Though, a lot of people through this whole Ms. World Traveler, I get a lot of questions. Well, where do you think about this? And what should I do about that? And, I love that kind of engagement, but
Mm.
I don't want to do the planning for someone else. Frankly, my plate is too full.
Gotcha. So let's move on to that other plate that you are juggling here, the pageant coaching. Walk us through, I guess, how you got into that, why you're still so passionate 40 plus years later doing this.
Well, as you mentioned, I started in the 1980s and, won a couple of pageants and it ended up doing it and becoming addicted to it. And so then I started judging. And I judged for around 20 years. And then I started coaching too, to add to the judging. So now I've judged hundreds of pageants. I do a lot of that. And that's very fulfilling for me because I know that we're going to change the trajectory of someone's life and help them realize their goals. So that's really important to me. And the coaching is really all about sewing into the lives of young women as well, helping them become who they who they're trying to be, who they're meant to be. And so working with skills, but a lot of it's mental preparation, spiritual, emotional, just meeting them where they're at and helping them move to the next level.
Cool. So, Carrie, when you're judging these participants, what are the criteria? What's the criteria for the pageant? I guess I've never been to one, so I don't know.
Sure, sure. That's an excellent question. The short answer is it's different for every single pageant because the director is different and there are different systems. And if you don't know this, most people know Miss America, Miss Universe, Miss USA. That's what they know. But there are actually hundreds and hundreds of systems out there for everything, for ethnicities, for height, for some are more platform oriented, some are more talent oriented, some are more speaking oriented, and so on and so on. So it really depends on what their vision is, and they will tell the judges, this is what I'm looking for. Now, let me tell you a little story to kind of illustrate that, because it was kind of a big deal. It made it to the Wall Street Journal.
Cool.
Yeah. So this was in one of the U.S. Virgin Islands, and the director had given us the instruction that she wanted someone who could compete at the Miss Universe level. Okay, so we were looking for that person and we deliberated. Not, you don't always get to deliberate, meaning we could talk to each other. When you don't get to deliberate, you don't speak a word to the other judges. It's just very much your own independent thinking. This was one of those where we deliberated and we all agreed on who the winner was based on her instruction. Well, we got to the pageant and the audience did not agree with our choice. And they started pacing behind us and screaming obscenities at the judges. And, it was fear for our safety, because their thinking was, we want a girl who lives here and who's going to stay in the community and work in her community. But that wasn't the instruction we were given. If that had been the instruction, we would have chosen a different girl. So the audience didn't understand why the judges selected who they selected.
Did the audience know what type of pageant they were attending?
They knew the type, but they didn't know what the instructions were. So that's an example of, we did what the director asked us to, regardless of what the audience wanted.
Interesting. So, what are your favorite types? I guess, Carrie. That's interesting to learn that there's hundreds of styles. I fall into the
Yeah.
category of only know Miss America and all those, classic ones. But that's really cool to hear. What are your favorite types? What do you resonate with? What do you
Ooh,
like?
I love all pageantry. Uh, just it was last year I judged the Ms. Senior World, and that is so much fun because the senior ladies are 50 and up, and I've judged up to ladies who are 90. And they just have a very different attitude about life because they're not climbing. A lot of the younger girls, and this is why they enter pageantry, they're looking for scholarships or, networking. They're really trying to improve their career. They're trying to have a voice. These ladies have already lived their lives. So it's all about their accomplishments and what they've already done. And they're kind of like footloose and fancy free. They're just having fun. They're doing it because they want to meet other women, like-minded women, and have fun, step out of their comfort zone. So judging that is completely different than a pageant where the girls are younger and they're really trying to accomplish their goals.
That's awesome. So when you're coaching particular people, like walk us through, I guess it depends on the type of pageant, right? Type of person.
It
What are
does.
some skills? Again, so on the show, we like to say that success is not a matter of good luck, it's good skills. So as a coach for these, pageant participants, what skills are you trying to teach them?
First and foremost is public speaking. Almost always, girls enter because they want to improve their speaking and their ability to present in public. And as you know, that is one of the great fears many people have is about speaking in front of people. So that's typically the first one. Um, Confidence. And confidence comes from doing something that you are not comfortable doing. So I use this as an example for people who are not in the industry. Imagine that you are going to walk out on stage in your swimsuit wearing high heels. Not that a man necessarily would, but just imagine it when everyone else in the room is clothed.
Mm.
Okay. Because when you're on the beach, it's different. Everybody else is in the same state of undress that you are. But in a pageant, you are the one who is out on stage in your swimsuit when everybody else has their clothes on. It's very difficult. I mean, if you can conquer that fear, what's harder? Standing up in front of some kindergartners and, teaching a Sunday school lesson? That's not harder. Do you get the point? That improving your confidence and the ability to say, I know I can do that. I've done it before and I know I can do that. So those are a
You
couple of reasons.
I love that, Carrie. How do you build that confidence? That's quite I was thinking about it myself. I'm like, "Oh, man, I don't wanna go up there." Like, show it's like it's very vulnerable. How do you build that confidence with someone?
Well, yeah, I mean, just kind of holding their hand through it. I mean, certainly as a judge, when I see these girls and they walk up, they walk up the stage and they're shaking so bad, you can see it. You can see them shaking, but they did it. That's the thing. They did it. And so they conquered, even though they were nervous and, terrified, they still did it. And then they walk off stage and it's like this, oh, it's over. I did that. So again, confidence comes from doing something that you don't know how to do or you're uncomfortable doing and doing it anyway.
I just thought of a nice parallel with your travel. It's like they're traveling backstage to being on stage,
That's
kinda
right.
love your
I love
theme
that.
of yeah, no, you came up with it. You got the blurring of the 2 worlds here. I love
That's kind of where the Ms. World Traveler comes from. This I'm wearing a banner. It's not a pageant. It's an ode to my 40 years in the pageant industry. So it's a bit of a marketing shtick that I'm doing this. But then when I go places, people want to ask me about it. Sometimes
Mm.
they'll say, "Congratulations." Yeah, I say, "Okay, thanks." I don't tell them I didn't win anything, but it's it's the blending of the 2 worlds that you're talking about.
Carrie, do you think there'll ever be a point in your life when you've said, "Oh, I'm traveled everywhere I want to see. Now I'm done traveling." You ever thought of that?
Um I don't think I'll ever be done traveling. I might be done with the super hard trips because I've done all the low-hanging fruit. Everything now is much harder to get to, more expensive to get to, takes longer, it is sometimes hard to see. I mean, like, for example, Zimbabwe. I mean, it's just so poor. It's so poor that it's hard to see. That can weigh. That can weigh as a heavy burden. So I don't know, I may come to the point where I say, "I just want to go to happy places." "Send me to Paris, send me to London." I don't know, but I don't know that I'll ever lose the wanderlust.
What about is becoming accessible, but traveling off the planet? Have you ever thought of, I don't know, maybe it'd be accessible in our lifetime. You ever thought about worlds outside of Earth?
It hasn't so far. That doesn't mean it wouldn't someday, but, there's still too many places on Earth for me to see, so I still have a lot to conquer.
Love it. What's your favorite place that you've traveled to?
Mm, Well, I have different favorites for different reasons. Like just for shopping, culture, history, Paris. I mean, that's kind of an easy one. I spent a month there about a year and a half ago, where I quote lived there. Rented an apartment, lived like a loaf. I wasn't doing touristy things, shopping at the grocery store. Not eating out, just kind of trying to live like a local, and then trying to go to new neighborhoods all the time and just see something different. And the fact that it was just such immersion, it endeared itself to me, and I was like, I could go back again and again. So Paris for those reasons. For shock value, shocking heat, shocking flies, shocking lack of sanitation, Egypt. It just had a lot of shock value to it. For friendliness of the people, Australia and New Zealand.
So when you travel, how long do you go? You said a month, particular places. Like, how do you plan how long you're going to go to a particular place?
That's a great question. Typically, I go very, very fast. Like when I did this Africa trip, I was in each place for no more than 2 days in each place. So and some days 1 day. So very, very fast. And the reason I do it that way, 1, I do get bored easily. 2, I want to see it and get my first impressions, and if it's someplace that I really want to come back and spend more time, then I will. But there's other places that I've gone that I've said, "Glad I saw it. I'm done. I don't need to come back." So, that's why I do it fast so that I'm not spending time that I would think, "Okay, yeah, I've been here 2 days and I've seen everything there is to see. Now how am I gonna kill another 5 days?"
So, Carrie, if people want to follow you as Miss World Traveler or, work with you building confidence at a pageant, what's a good place for them to reach you?
Well, we're on Instagram, Ms. World Traveler, MS, excuse me, it's Carrie, Ms. World Traveler. We're on YouTube. That's where the show is. So, love to have people come watch the show because it's informative. It's fun, but it's informative too. I try and, put in little tips and, just interesting things about my travels, things that I've learned. And that's YouTube, Ms. World Traveler. So yeah, of course, kerrydamiano.com. They can find me there as well.
Awesome. Well, Carrie, it's been a pleasure hearing about your travels in this lifetime. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
This conversation is a reminder that confidence isn't something you're born with, it's something you build by doing uncomfortable things. Travel and pageantry may look glamorous from the outside, but at their core, they're vehicles for learning how to show up, face fear, and trust yourself in unfamiliar situations. I also like the point on travel not being escapism. We don't travel to run away from things, but rather to build that confidence. Success is not good luck, but good skills. And the skill today to take with you from this episode is simple but powerful. Stop waiting for someday. Create enough structure to support your goals and enough flexibility to adapt along the way. Whether it's booking the trip, going after the promotion, starting that business, or stepping into a room where you don't feel yet ready, just go do it. Take one small actionable step towards that goal, no matter how small, because it's never too late to get started with any work. I really like this from Kerry. And, as you know, I hate the word retirement. So I didn't wait till retirement to write 3 books. I didn't wait till retirement to do this podcast or run 12 marathons around the country. The point is, don't wait for what you're waiting until retirement for. The skill is to do something today, no matter how small it is. Get started on that project or planning on that travel destination. Do it today. Take the thoughts from backstage in your mind to on stage to live your life. Thanks for listening to Work Sucks, But I Like It. Until next time, keep stepping on stage in your own life. Play your song and dance.
And there's a wind that blows.